Hello, this is Coach Buckner, and this is season one, episode 4 of Buckner Life Coaching. I am Eastman Buckner, the cowboy coach. Today I wanted to talk about something that I experienced something today that I've been experiencing quite often, young people at their employment. So I made a couple of trips to a few stores today. And one particular store I went into, there was a young lady who was a cashier. She was actually helping me at the paint counter. I was buying some paint. And she just seemed like the weight of the world was on her, and she just didn't like what she was doing. It's clearly that case. So I asked her, what's your plan? And then she says, well, I've already majored in this and that, 2 topics. And I won't tell you what the topics are because I thought they were rather odd. But the point was this. She was very unhappy with where she was. I get the paint, I go to the checkout line, and there's a young African-American gentleman yet there. And I asked him, I said, young man, how you doing? He said, terrible. I said, why? And he says, I've been here since 5:30 and I got to stay here till 5:30 before I can get off. I said, well, that's a bad thing? And he says, yes, I've been here since 5:30. I said, wow. Okay. All right. So I'm assuming you don't like it here? Nah, I don't like it here. I said, well, what's your plan? He said, well, first thing I need to do is move out of my parents' house. And I said, where are you going to go, into the woods? And he started laughing. I'm like, I'm serious. Where are you going to go, into the woods? So I said, young man, I gave him my QR code. I said, scan this. We need to talk because clearly we need to find something better for you to do. This has been going on for quite a while, that I'm seeing young people who are employed, and that's a good thing that they're employed. It is a good thing but they're so disheartened about what they're doing. They hate, some of them despise what they're doing. You can't provide excellent customer service if you just don't want to be there. So granted, this is so important because if you're not pleased with your job, I'm not saying you have to like it every day. I'm not saying that every day has to be joyful. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. And I understand that these young people realize that they do have some responsibilities. So like it or not, they are doing what they ought to do, even though they may not want to do. That's important. I'm always concerned about people who always say, well, I don't want to do that. Like, who cares what you want to do, but you ought to do it. So yes, there's a great deal that can be said for doing what you ought to do, even if you don't want to do. That's what adulting is all about, doing what you ought to do. Now, there are times in which, and most of the time I think, that you want to do it. You love to do it. But there's times that you don't want to do it. There was a commercial a number of years ago by Dunkin' Donuts. It was probably about 20 years ago. And the commercial began with this gentleman. He's getting out of bed and he says, time to make the donuts. So it's real early in the morning. So the reason that you can go into Dunkin' Donuts at 5 and 6 a.m. in the morning to eat donuts is because somebody got up at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning to make the donuts. So his slogan was, time to make the donuts. And that's how I see so many young people out there basically saying, time to make the donuts. They don't want to do it, but they are doing it. So I'm not trying to belittle them. I am saying that most adults, my age group, would say, oh, you're just lazy. Now, I'm certain that there's a lot of young people that are lazy. I'm certain of that. But I don't think they're lazy if they are showing up. But they are misplaced. They are misplaced. They are not where they should be. So my goal is to help them get where they should be, help them find a fit so they can, whatever they do, they can enjoy doing it. Once again, it doesn't have to be, you know, puppies and rainbows. No, but it at least needs to be something that doesn't irk you, something that doesn't make all the fiber of your being say, I hate this job. You don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. So I wanted to touch on that. So when you know what you're gifted at doing, then always try to gravitate towards that. So there's a famous movie, Alice in Wonderland, and there's a line in the movie where, well, actually it was an animated feature, where Alice comes up to this fork in the road. There's this path that she's on, and then it breaks out into all these other paths. And there's a tree right there in the center. So she stands there and she said, what path should I take? So there's a Cheshire cat in the tree. So this Cheshire cat appears and says, hey. She said, oh, a Cheshire cat. And then she's asked the Cheshire cat, which road should I take? And the Cheshire cat says, well, where are you trying to get to? And then Alice responds, no place in particular. And then the Cheshire Cat responds, then it doesn't matter what road you take. That's the problem. If you don't know where you want to go, then you'll take any road. And that's where most young people are making poor decisions, is because they don't have a clearly defined goal. So any path is good for them. And a lot of those paths are chosen by friends who don't have their best interests at heart, or whatever the group is doing, whatever, because they don't have a clear path. The scriptures tells us that where there is no vision, the people perish. The old Hebrew says, where there is no vision, they cast off restraints. In other words, they lose discipline where there's no clear vision. So if you don't know where you want to go, then anybody's idea that comes up to you will be a good idea because you don't know where you want to be. So if somebody comes and says, hey, man, we about to go to this party. Okay, let's go. Oh, man, hey, we're going to rob this store. Let's go. Why not do it? Because you don't know where you want to be. But if you have a clearly defined direction, you have a clearly defined goal, then when somebody comes up to you and says, hey, we need to go to this party, man. Like, nah, man, I've got to be here because, I need to be here in 5 years, so I got to do this first. Or somebody says, hey, we're going to go do this. You're like, can't do it because I've got to be down the road a little further. So next year I've got to have this. I'm trying to graduate. If you have a clearly defined goal, it protects you. It protects you against the enemy. And the enemy is actually good. Now, hopefully we can determine what's a good and a bad idea. But one of the ideas that hurts us the most is actually the good ones, because good is the enemy of best. There's a lot of good things you can do, but it is the best thing for you to do. That's the important thing. You don't want to take on all of these good things to do and neglect the best thing to do. Now, you can do the best thing. If you do select the best thing that you should be doing, then now you can sub-select some of the good things if you have time. But never neglect to do what is best for a lot of good ideas. So, didn't want to go on very long today, but I did want to touch on that. So, at Buckner Life Coaching, our goal is to get you to see who you are, how God has wired you, what are your innate talents and gifts, and how do you direct them towards particular goals. So I wanted to keep you in mind of that. So this has been a short one today, but I want you to go ahead and subscribe so that you would automatically know when I have another podcast come up. So this is Eastman Buckner, the Cowboy Coach. Look forward to talking to you later.